Hello and welcome back to Voices of the Great War. I'm Liz Watson. So today we're going to be reading one more letter from Edward Brown. Remember, Edward Brown is a soldier and he's stationed in France during World War I. Typically, Edward writes his letters home to his brother William, but this particular letter, it is actually written to his friend Ralph. And that's the letter. And the letter to his friend, to Edward's friend, is dated September 25th, 1918, and it reads, Dear Ralph, have you counted how many dollars you owe me? I haven't received word from you in a long time, so naturally I wonder if you are living up to your agreement. No alibis will do, so out with the truth and nothing but the truth, or I convict you on perjury. I imagine you have received my letters giving a brief account of my experience on the Champagne and Chateau Thierry fronts, so there is no use for repetition. We left Chateau Thierry front for what we thought would be the rest area, but no such luck. They absolutely refused to keep a good division in the rear very long. We made many one-day stops resting during the day and up in Adam during the night. Our first stop was Rozier, and from that town on we passed our days in villages so small that they don't ever appear on the map. One town in particular only had a population of 14 people, 16 cows, 10 horses, several hundred chickens, and goodness knows how many manure piles. The majority of our time was spent in pub tents, and oh, how uncomfortable they are. Just try it sometime if you don't believe me. Have been in another offensive since Chateau Thierry affair. Our guns opened up at midnight and lasted until 5 a.m. The effort of our gunfire was terrible. The ground resembled a sieve, and I noticed that the Germans received quite a number of direct hits upon dugouts and machine gun positions. It was indeed funny to see so many Germans walking about without any guard and willing to do anything you told them to. They were certainly a happy bunch, and as far as they were concerned, the war was over. These towns are in very bad conditions, especially one which has ceased to exist. I am somewhat anxious to hear from you. I wish you would send me a few books of the coupons and also the information as to what months they have been received. Well, old scout, be good and drop me a line occasionally. With my sincerest regards to all, your old pal, Edward H. Brown, 167th Infantry, 42nd Division, AEF, France. So from Edward's letter, we read that he has been in some very big battles. Champagne, Chateau Thierry, and Chateau Thierry. It was fought on July 18th, 1918, and it was one of the earlier engagements that the American Expeditionary Forces participated in. And their allies saw roughly 2,000 casualties during that offensive, and the Germans, it was actually greater than 5,000. So there was quite a disparity between the casualties. So the allies were pretty successful in that regard on that particular front. And so again, we've seen, Edward is really, he has seen quite a bit, and he has participated in quite a bit of action while over there. And he talks about the Germans and how the Germans that they are encountering, they're willing to do anything you ask them, and they're no longer maybe feeling so much as, we're enemies now. The war is winding down in their eyes. It's, we're coming to an end. So that letter is written September 25th. The armistice was November 11th, 1918. So really we're still a good number of weeks out before the armistice hits. And actually there's still the Argonne Offensive, which is the largest offensive that the American Expeditionary Forces participated in during World War I. We're actually a couple days out on September 25th from that. So there is still quite a bit of, even though maybe not in length of time, but there's still quite a bit of war left to be fought, unfortunately. So we're not at things, yes, they might be winding down, but we're not at the end yet, unfortunately. What we do also have, though, today, I actually have a couple of citations that were written for the 42nd. Now, we did read a portion of these during our letters from the Eckert family, but I have a few additional ones that I would like to read honoring the 42nd. So our first one was written on July 19th, 1918, and it was written by General Nolan, and it reads, General Order. At the moment when the 42nd American Division is on the point of leaving the 21st Army Corps, I desire to express my keen satisfaction and my sincere thanks for the services which it has rendered under all conditions. By its valor, ardor, and its spirit, it has very particularly distinguished itself on July 15th and 16th in the course of the great battle where the Fourth Army broke the German offensive on the Champagne front. I am proud to have had it under my orders during this period. My prayers accompany it in the great struggle engaged in for the liberty of the world. General Nollen, commanding the 21st Army Corps. So General Nollen, in the citation, he does mention the Champagne front, where Edward Brown, he did participate in that. And he mentions, the courage and how distinguished they fought. So the 42nd did they were very heavily participated in so many different offensives during the First World War. And now we have another citation, and this was dated July 28th, 1918, and it was written by Major General H. Leggett, and it reads, Number 1. The return of the 42nd Division to the 1st Army Corps was a matter of self-congratulations to the Corps commander, not only because of the previous relations with the division, but because of the crisis which existed at the time of its arrival. The standard of efficient performance of duty which is demanded by the Commander-in-Chief of the AEF is a high one, involving as it does on an occasion such as to present complete self-sacrifice on the part of the entire personnel and a willingness to accept cheerfully every demand, even to the limit of endurance of the individual for the sake of the cause for which we are in France. The taking over of the front of the 1st Army Corps under the conditions of relief and advance, together with the attendant difficulties, indeed, to the widening of the front, was in itself no small undertaking. And there is added to this your advance in the face of the enemy to a depth of 5 or more kilometers, all under cover of darkness, to the objective laid down by higher authority to be obtained, which objective you are holding regardless of the effects of the enemy to dislodge you. The Corps Commander is pleased to inform you that the 42nd Division has fully measured up to the high standard above referred to and reiterates his self-congratulations that you and your organization are again a part of the 1st Army Corps AEF. Major General H. Leggett. So once more we read here that they were the men of the 42nd, the bravery that they held on, under very trying circumstances, that they proceeded on in very trying circumstances, and they would not, they didn't surrender, they didn't give up, they held on no matter what was thrown at them, and they have a lot. Those boys obviously had a lot to be proud of during that period. And then finally, this last citation. And this was actually dated August 13th, 1918, and it was written by Charles T. Menor. And it reads, To the officers and men of the 42nd Division. A year has elapsed since the formation of your organization. It is therefore fitting to consider what you have accomplished as a combat division and what you should accomplish in the future. Your first elements entered the trenches in Lorraine on February 21st. You served on that front for 110 days. You were the first American division to hold a divisional sector, and when you left the sector June 21st, you had served continuously as a division in the trenches for a longer time than any other American division. Although you entered the sector without experience in actual warfare, you so conducted yourselves as to win the respect and affection of the French veterans with whom you fought. Under gas and bombardment and raids and patrols, in the heat of hand-to-hand conflict, and in the long, dull hours of trench routine so trying to a soldier's spirit, you bore yourselves in a manner worthy of the traditions of our country. You were withdrawn from Lorraine and moved immediately to the Champagne front, where during the critical days from July 13th to the 18th, you have the honor of being the only American division to fight in General Gouraud's army, which so gloriously obeyed his order, "We will stand or die," and by its iron defense crushed the German assault, and made possible the offensive of July 18th to the west of Reims. From Champagne, you were called to take part in exploiting the success as north of the Marne. Fresh from the battlefront before Chalon, you were thrown against the piqued troops of Germany. For 8 consecutive days, you attacked skillfully prepared positions. You captured great stores of arms and munitions. You forced the crossing of the Ourcq. You took Hill 212, Sergy, Moreau, Fromay, and Suresnes by assault. You drove the enemy, including an Imperial Guard division, before you were for a depth of 15 kilometers. When your infantry was relieved, it was in full pursuit of the retreating Germans, and your artillery continued to progress and support another American division in advance on the Vesle. For your services in Lorraine, your division was formally commended in general orders by the French Army Corps, under which you served. For your services in Champagne, your assembled officers received the personal thanks and commendation of General Gerard himself. For your services on the Ourcq, your division was officially complimented in a letter from the commanding general, 1st Army Corps, July 28, 1918. To your success, all ranks and all services have contributed, and I desire to express to every man in the command my appreciation of his devoted and courageous effort. However, our position places a burden of responsibility upon us, which we must strive to bear steadily forward without faltering. To our comrades who have fallen, we owe the sacred obligations of maintaining the reputation which they died to establish. The influence of our performance on our allies and on our enemies cannot be overestimated, for we were one of the first divisions sent from our country to France to show the world that Americans can fight. Hard battles and long campaigns lie before us. Only by ceaseless vigilance and tireless preparation can we fit ourselves for them. I urge you, therefore, to approach the future with confidence, but above all with firm determination that so far it is in your power, you will spare no effort to maintain the record of our division in honor of America. Charles T. Menauer, Major General, U.S. Army. So from that citation, we get quite an insight into all that the 42nd Division has done and did do during the First World War, at least up until this point in August 13th, 1918. They were in many different offensives, and it was, a great deal of what they did absolutely helped towards the success of the Allies during the First World War. I mean, it's very obvious from those citations. I mean, they were, and it even says, they were like the first division, and they spent 110 days on that Lorraine front, and they had no experience. You're talking about boys who had no combat experience, and now they're being thrust into a situation of war, and it must have been just obviously very eye-opening for them. You're talking boys that came from farms. Some of them came from cities. But regardless if they were from the city or from the farm, none of them had, more than likely, obviously they had never been engaged in combat before, and they were having to do hand-to-hand combat. They were facing bombardments. So it was, you have to really, think about the bravery and what they went through during that time, what Edward and Odo as well went through. Well, and that is it for today, but thank you for joining me on this episode of Voices of the Great War, and I'm Liz Watson. Until next time.